When I was in high school, my best friend, Jen Vierteller, and I had a little saying that lemon and lime heads ruled. I don't know why we said it. We thought it was hilarious. So this makes me think of her. But I played around with different shapes and leaf shapes to get the lemons and limes that I'm going to show you today. The first thing I'm going to do though is show you what shapes we use for the lime. So originally, I played with the idea of the background being the outside of the lime and this would be the inside, but it didn't quite translate right. So I took that background off and just made the outside of the lime and then thought about the leaf and then thought about the stem as well. So for the lime, all you need are 3 curvlets and a squirvlet. The squirvlet, to me, this is the stem of the lime. So I wanted to make it brown. Only a little bit pokes through, and I think that's perfect. So I use a brown with the green, and then the rest are the background color. And that's what's going to give us this shape right here. So those are all done and squared up. I'm going to go ahead and make sure my sewing machine is set at a full 1/4 inch and I'm back up to a regular stitch length. So now I'll go ahead and match up. When you're matching, you can either use glue or a pin. I will use glue since it's right here. I'm just going to put a little dot right there. Then I'll take this piece and match it up, and now it's glued. Make sure that's together. Go to my machine and stitch. How about I turn my machine on? Now, since I opened the seams, let's make sure that matched. Yep, that looks pretty good. When you need to open your seam, you can just grab scissors. Those are too thick. So I'm just going to grab this seam ripper and open it up. Okay. And that's just to unstick the glue. Don't use too much, but use enough that it will hold it together. We'll give it a press with the seams open. We'll lay that back down and we'll go to the second one. So again, I'm going to do a little dot just right here and match these up and stitch them together. If you hear any hammering in the background, that is my husband building my studio, which we lovingly call Quilt Fort. And we've been building it for, 7 years. So hopefully it will be done this year. COVID really messed with lumber prices and everything. But we're back on it. And he's working on the beams right now. So I can tell that matched up real well. Go ahead and show you on this side. So the glue works really well. Press it open, and now we've got the other half of our lime. So we want to make sure we line up all 3 points. So I'm going to do a dab of glue at the 3 most important points, and then I'll match them up. I'm going to start at this end, match, match, and match. Stitch it together. Open it up. Oh yeah, that's pretty darn good. Look at that. Looks great. Make sure I close my glue and open this up from the glue. You can also use a stiletto. This is just what I happen to have handy next to me. Anything with a sharp point. Press that open. Now, I'm not gumming up my needle or my iron because this glue dries so quickly that you don't need to worry about it. Okay, and there's our lime. Next, we're going to move on to making the cute little leaves. The leaves are comprised of 3 pieces, 2 concave background pieces and 1 convex pie shape for the leaf color right here. So the first thing that we're going to do is create the curvelet, create the block. So I'm going to use my glue, and I'm machine sewing this. So in your booklet, it's only hand sewing, but with machine sewing, you get to skip the part where you mark the stitch line and just glue them together. So I'm just going to, this time I'm putting glue on the back side, which I've been experimenting with. And I'll match my edges. You have this in your booklet. You've also hopefully watched the video. So I'm gonna go pretty quick on this part. Smush it together. And I'll do this one. So glue again on this concave piece and match my edge, and smush it together. Let's see, there we go. Done. Okay, put the glue cap back on your glue. Go to my sewing machine, and I was just sewing this guy together, so I have to do some adjustments. The first thing I'm going to do is sew at a scant 1/4 inch. That happens to be right at the edge of my foot on my sewing machine. And I have a seam guide here that I'm using, and you can get this at probably on Amazon. I got mine on Ken's Sewing Supply. It's called a cloth guide or a seam guide. It doesn't work with all machines, so you need to make sure to check your manual. So I'm at a scant 1/4 inch. And the other thing I'm going to do is I typically sew at a 2 stitch length. So I'm going to go down 2 notches to 1.8, and that will just shorten that stitch length so it goes around the corner easier. The other thing that I'm going to do is grab my stiletto, and that's going to help me hold down this fabric on this tiny little piece. So I'll start with it under, forward, back stitch, and then just slowly work my way around using my stiletto so I don't run over my finger. Hi, Catherine. And we've got our first curve. Oh, do you see that? Do you see right there? I'm going to need to fix that. For some reason I got off, but all I'm going to do is pick off that stitch right there and then go back under. I'm not going to unpick the whole thing. That would be crazy sauce. Ah, much better. Much better. Okay, so now I'm going to stitch this one. I'm getting better at doing it one-handed. Yep, that looks great too. So even though we sewed at a scant 1/4 inch, I still want to take a little bit of bulk off this seam allowance. So I'm going to go ahead and take my new awesome serrated scissors that I love, and you can get on my website. They're from Australia. And just trim a little bit off. Let's do that again. Just trim a little bit off. I don't know if you can hear the upstairs noise, but summer vacation in my house has started with my newly graduated high schooler. All right, so now I'm going to press the seam allowance towards the center. That way the curve pops out. Look how nice that is. All right, I still get excited when I see a nicely pressed curve. All right, so I'm going to press forward. There we go. Now let's square them up. So it's a little bit of a process, but it's worth it in the end. Okay, let me grab my, going to put my square up ruler down, lining up the edge of the curve with the edge of the curve, with the line, I mean, the edge of the curve with the 1/4 inch line. I don't usually have a lot to cut off here, but I have a little Okay, now that guy's ready. And let's do this one. So we'll square him up, line up the line. It doesn't have to be perfect. Square it up. And now we get to make another curvelet because we want that orange peel leaf shape. So we take our two pieces and we're going to cut a curvelet out. So then we can go in and put this background on top and have a leaf that looks like this. So all we do to accomplish that is we take, it's too bad that my cutting mat is green and my leaf is green. We take our curvelet, our convex, our pie shape, making sure we're cutting off the green part here. And we cut that little tiny piece off. And now it's the shape again. So we take it, put it on there, make sure it's squared up, cut that piece off. So what we're left with is this going here and this going here. These are already snipped and ready to be glued on. So I'll grab my glue stick again. Make sure you can see. Glue stick. Exact same thing. Match the edges. Edges are matched. Go to the other edge and smush it together. Just like that. Okay, one more time. Get our glue. If it's not sticking, you're not using enough glue, or it could be a really dry area that you live in which case get yourself a little jar of water to dip your glue into, and that will help a lot. All right, we've got our two that we need to sew together. Let's move our stuff out of the way. Bring our sewing machine back so you can see. We're still at a 1/4 inch, or a scant 1/4 inch. Nothing's changed. Back stitch. You're sewing with such a small seam allowance that you don't necessarily need to backstitch. It's out of habit, and you'll see sometimes I'll backstitch at the beginning and then I'll forget to do it at the end. Call that being consistently inconsistent. Do whatever works for you. All right, so snip that. And now we treat this the same as any other curvelet, and we trim that seam allowance off. Just a little bit. Trim it off. Once you go from a scant to a full 1/4 inch, it looks ginormous. All right, let's press these. Now, most of you are going to want to press this out. I tried to do it that way and I did not like it. So I forced it to press towards the center so that the leaf will pop out on both sides. It's not going to want to do it, but you can make it happen. You just have to use a little hot iron like my cute Aliso with some steam. Start on the back and then push it towards the center. All right, the last thing we need to do is square this up. You can see that it's not square at all. So I'm going to use my square up ruler that comes with the curvelet set, and I'm going to use the same principles that I use when I square up my curvelet. I'm going to take this 1/4 inch line and line it with the outside edge of the curve. This 1/4 inch line, match it with the outside edge of the curve. And then I'm ready to square this up. That way, when I sew it together and I use that full 1/4 inch seam allowance, the line, it should disappear like here, how that just flowed right in together. That's your seam allowance. Oh, cute. So there's one. And then let's square up this one. And we'll move on to putting it all together. We'll cut that. And I think I had a little bit there. a little bit there. Cute. So we've got our lime, 2 leaves, a filler background piece right here, and one here and here. So I'm going to go ahead and sew these two, so this to this, and this to this. I'll speed up that process so you don't get too bored. Know that I'm going back to a full 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm going back to my normal stitch length on my sewing machine. There we go. I'm gonna do this. So here's what I was talking about with the full 1/4 inch seam allowance is I really like how this is touching the brown. So I'm going to adjust this part here, this white part, to sit higher. See how it dipped down? And I lost that connection. So I'm just going to unpick it a little bit at the part that I need to adjust and then scooch it up to where it needs to be and restitch it. I have questionable use of the seam ripper, so please do not follow my direction. Use with caution. Okay, let's see if this will work. That looked better. Much better. See what a difference that makes? Let me go ahead and press it, and then you can see. And I got better and better as I practiced. This is probably my 8th or 9th leaf togetherness that I've done on this lime. And some are better than others, but this one turned out real good. So I'll show you the difference, what I mean, and what I'm looking at. So I'm looking at this right here, and I really like how it flows together. Whereas in this one, see that space there? I wish that had been closer together and this was closer together, so that space would go away. It is not something that a novice sewer should worry about. It's just something that I'm trying to develop in my sewing practice, is paying attention to those. Like these two could have been closer together as well. Something nitpicky, but something that will elevate your sewing from beginner to intermediate. All right, so that's how you make the leaves. That's how you make the lime. The next video is going to be showing you the lemon and the stem with the leaf, which is this one right here. The stem, which you see here, and this was my first one, I have not quite perfected yet, but we're gonna, third time's a charm, right? And I'm just gonna show you how I get it, and maybe someone out there will find the perfect way and share. So first of all, I'm doing a lemon with a stem. So the lemon has 2 curvelets, a squirrelette at the top with a stem color. So in this case, I did brown and a bottom. Now I experimented with different color bottoms that you can see here. And the lemon does have kind of a green, um, orangey kind of bottom with a little bit of black in it. I studied lemons for so long. I took them upstairs. Um, so this one I wanted to try with no bottom color because it was a little distracting to me. So I thought I'll just try the stem and the stem color at the top. So curvelet, curvelet, squirvelet, squirvelet, one background color, different change. And then we've got our leaf, which we just learned how to make. Now I want to do a little stem coming up here. Now we're going to do the stem. This was my first try. This was my second try. This one's much better. So I'm going to show you how I made this work. Sorry for the construction noises in the background. My husband is working on my studio, which is very exciting. So we don't mind the noise. We don't mind the noise. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to cut this chunk of brown for my stem. And I want it to be about 1.5 by 3/4. So let's just double check. 3/4. And we're going to do the same for the blue. I'm going to cut 3/4 of an inch off. And now I have these two. So what I found is that I liked it cut off at an angle. I think that looks really cute. So if you line your two pieces up so they overlap, can you see, let me pick this up, how they're overlapping just a little bit? And then I'm going to cut from here to here. Pull those away. Now I can sew these two pieces together. So flip them right sides together. Allow a little bit of space right here for the 1/4 inch seam allowance. I always mix this up. I am by no means an expert in this area, and my fabric just totally slipped, so we gotta do that again. All right, all unpicked. Let's try that again. Got it lined up. There we go. And now, when we turn it out, we have a little stem. So what I'm going to do is press my seam allowance open. If you don't do that, do whatever you like. Press to the dark. Just kind of make sure that this is nice and straight. Stretched a little bit. Okay, now we've got our stem. There he is right there. He's larger than we need, but I like to be safe and I trim stuff down. So I'm going to start off with a 2-inch square. Now, what I found is if I cut it right down the middle, if I cut this right here, then when the seam allowance was sewn together, it gets off center. So if we do it about 1/8 of an inch off the center, then we'll have more of a centered stem. So what I mean by that is instead of cutting right here, right down the middle, I'm going to offset it by 1/8 of an inch and then slice it down and then sew these together. I'll take and do a little bit heavier on the brown than the background color. Okay. Come in here, add my other piece for the other side. Again, sorry about the noise. Going to line these two up. That's how I know it's straight. All right. So now I can come in here and I am going to open my seams. I like an open seam allowance. I think it lays flatter and it just seems to work better in with my aesthetic, with what I like. Okay, so, whoops. Let's straighten that out. I kind of smushed it a little bit. It looks kind of crazy, right? This is why I cut larger, is so I can come in here and trim it perfectly square. 2 more cuts. Ah, I lost it. Right there. Ah, there we go. And there is our cute little stem that when sewn in, the seam allowance is going to allow it to go straight down. Now that the stem is done, we get to put this all together. Let's lay it out again. In the lime, I sewed it wrong. So let's make sure we've got it right this time. Let's see, I think I want the leaf on, no, I'll keep it on the same side that I did the lime. So we've got the stem, the leaf, and a background piece. And then 2 background pieces here. Now you're more than welcome to make this a 1.5 by 2.5. Is that what it would be? I think so, 1.5 by 3. I just like I like the seam lines, so I like them all being their individual pieces. All right, let's sew this together. I'll speed up this part again so you don't get too bored. And that is how you put the lemon together with a stem. It turned out pretty good. I like where it ended up. So then all I would do now is make sure I didn't stretch anything or have pieces that were too big. Just cut off any little extras right there and right here. That looks pretty good. So we've got, this is what it looks like with a 1-inch border around it. And this is without. So all I did was cut 1-inch strips and I sew them together. I start with the top leaf and then go around like a log cabin. So I started here, 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 and then ended here. And then if you sew these together, they should go together really nicely. And then you could even mix in some limes, lemons and limes. I definitely like them with a little bit of space between them. I think that butted right up against each other, it's just going to go, it's going to flow too much and you won't know where you start and where you end. So personal preference, but have fun with these, and it's perfect for summer lemonade and limeade. Share what you make. Tag me on Instagram, Betty Crockrass. Have fun, you guys.